And an Ethiopian envoy to Qatar lashes out at the UN for failing to understand Ethiopia. Hello and many thanks for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Tabitha John. Do stay with us. As the negotiation between Ethiopia, Sudan and Egypt is in a recess, a blatant remark by Abdel Fattah el-Sisi of Egypt about the use of the Nile appears to be provocative. Responding to the president's audacious comments, spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, Ambassador Dina Mufti, said Ethiopia won't relent to any other option other than negotiation. Alula Teklamariam reports.
The dispute between Ethiopia and Egypt over the contentious hydropower dam Ethiopia is erecting over the river Abai seems to take another turn following Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's blatant remarks about the use of the Nile. Though Ethiopia unequivocally asserted that the dam will cause no significant harm to the downstream countries, Egypt always opts to ignite disputes over the dam. Taking Ethiopia's internal political quagmire as an opportunity, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi of Egypt Tuesday threw warning on his televised address. Sisi said there would be severe regional consequences if Egypt's water supply were affected by the giant hydropower dam being built by Ethiopia.
احنا ما بنتكلمش كتير. بس انا بقول للناس كلها ما حدش هيقدر ياخد نقطة مية من مصر. واللي عايز يجرب يجرب. احنا ما بنهددش حد. لو سمحتوا ما احنا عمرنا ما هددنا ودايما حوارنا رشيد جدا و يعني صبور جدا، لكن ما حدش هيقدر ياخد نقطة مية من مصر والا هيبقى في حالة من عدم الاستقرار في المنطقة لا يتخيلها احد. لا يتخيلها احد وما حدش يتصور انه يقدر يبقى بعيد عن قدرتنا. لا. أنا عمري ما اتكلمت كده وأنا ما هددش حد. بقول تاني مية مصر لا مساس بيها، والمساس بيها خط أحمر، وهيبقى رد فعلنا في حالة المساس بيها أمر هيأثر على استقرار المنطقة بالكامل. شكرا.
Replying to the president's audacious remarks Wednesday, spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, Ambassador Dina Mufti, said both countries have no option to reach an agreement other than negotiation. Dina said throwing threatening comments will bring no change but strains relations.
Nile is our gift, a transboundary river, of which 86% of this water emanates from Ethiopia. Though Ethiopia is not utilizing it to its full capacity, we know that Ethiopia is eligibly, we have a right to use it. Now, Ethiopia believes strongly that Nile should be a source of cooperation, not a source of conflict, not a source of confusion. It should be a source of cooperation. This is what we are telling our downstream countries. That is why we are regularly and faithfully attending the trilateral talks. That is why we are always opting for amicable solutions, win-win solutions. That is why we are always saying we are out for win-win solutions. I think these instances, these are positions, equally benefits the downstream countries that are Egypt and Sudan. And I think this is the only option. This is the option that can benefit all of us. Let's everybody remind himself or herself about common benefits, not about threats. The threats do not help. They don't. Nobody could benefit from threats. Threats of wars are destructive, and they then do not benefit anyone. No one could be a winner. Everybody will lose. So I think we should desist from those sorts of things.
Ethiopia, unrelenting with its firm stance of building the dam on its own resource, set us to execute the second filling by the coming rainy season. The country repeatedly rebuked Egypt's desire to monopolize the Nile water, which does not contribute a drop of water.
Meanwhile, spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Dina Mufti, said his latest remark about Eritrea and Ethiopia has been misquoted. The ambassador said his remark had no intention to disregard Eritreans' independence. It rather was to emphasize the close relationship and neighborliness of the two sisterly nations. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Yesterday we have had a weekly press briefing at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, whereby I was asked about the possible confederal relationship between the two countries. My comment was like this. I said the relationship between Ethiopia and Eritrea is currently cordial. We have overcome the period of adversity in which we have been to the unfortunate war, and unfortunate no war, no peacetime. And I said there is an opportunity in the room for improving our relationship. I said not only with Eritrea. He said leave alone with Eritrea, we can expand our cooperations with other regional neighbors per our foreign policy. I said with Kenya, with Djibouti, and other neighboring countries as well. This is a context in which I was briefing the media. Though some quarters have picked it as if I have a doubt about the Eritrean independence. Ethiopian government is committed to the Eritrean independence. Ethiopia is committed to Eritrean sovereignty. We know that Eritreans love their countries. I very much appreciate their patriotism and the sort of nationalism they have, and I have respect for them as well. And it's non-starter to doubt about their commitment to their sovereignty, to their independence. So I like the way some media outlets were portraying it. So therefore I want to reiterate this. One, Ethiopia, including Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is committed to the Eritrean sovereignty and the Eritrean independence. We have no doubt that Eritreans are patriots, they love their countries.
Ethiopian ambassador to Qatar, Samia Zakaria, writing on Al Jazeera, says the international community's support for the humanitarian situation in Tigray far from matches its incessant condemnations. It even fails to acknowledge the government's stepped-up humanitarian response that has reached more than 4.2 million people to date despite limited resources, Samia said. Haptamu Ashagwe compiles GTN's report.
In her article on Al Jazeera, Ambassador Plenipotentiary of Ethiopia to Qatar, Sami Zakaria, severely criticizes the UN and other international organizations for failing to understand Ethiopia. The ambassador said the pleas of Ethiopia to the League of Nations have repeatedly been ignored since the time of Emperor Haile Selassie. History seems to be repeating itself after 86 years, her article goes on. The vital reform implemented by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and his team were very much lauded by the international community. They brought real changes on the ground for which the Ethiopian Prime Minister received the Nobel Peace Prize. These reforms rescued Ethiopia and its people from the grip of the new respective Tigray People's Liberation Front, which had dominated the Ethiopian government since the 1990s. However, we are now witnessing a U-turn by the international community. Misled by orchestrated TPLF misinformation and propaganda, the international community tends to put the blame on Prime Minister Abiy's administration for going after this grave threat to Ethiopian and regional security. Last November's brutal attack by TPLF force against the Ethiopian National Defense Force Northern Command in the state of Tigray region was quite simply a declaration of war. Such an attack against a sovereign country's national defense forces, the ultimate guarantors of a constitution and of any nation, is now something a government can ignore easily. Our constitution stipulates the armed forces shall protect the sovereignty of the country, so the government had to take action as part of fulfilling its basic constitutional duty, which was regrettably not welcomed by some international communities. according to a report by Foreign Policy magazine. In a confidential memo to the UN Secretary General, Hakim Stenor, head of the UNDP, wrote that the TPLF's attack would have been an act of war everywhere in the world and one that typically triggers military response in defense of any nation. This happened in Ethiopia and no one appeared to care about this high crime. Days after the Ethiopian government started the law enforcement operation in the Tigray region, a TPLF-orchestrated massacre took place in Maikadra, which claimed the lives of more than 600 Amhara civilians. Yet, the international community largely ignored it and few dared to condemn it. There was silence also when Sudanese troops violated Ethiopia's sovereignty and territorial integrity in November 2020. It appears it has become easy these days to able one-sided emotions at international organizations, mainly at the UN Security Council, before exhausting all available local mechanisms and platforms for resolving such issues. Not only this, but the UN Security Council also discusses the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, a hydroelectric dam that aims to change the lives of tens of millions of poverty-stricken Ethiopians who lack basic access to food and millions more living under safety net programs, including 1.8 million Tigrayans long before the current situation. However, thanks to the Ethiopian government's robust diplomatic efforts and the support of some principled partners, the African Union has stepped in to facilitate trilateral negotiations on the dam. David Beasley, head of the World Food Programme, has called for scaled-up humanitarian support to Tigray, amounting to $107 million. However, the international community and the United Nations have not made adequate support. In fact, as the United Nations Development Programme memo points out, their confrontational approach is likely to be counterproductive and will yield no results. Access to the Tigray region has been adequately provided to both international humanitarian agencies and the media. Yet some in the international community are still calling on the government for unfettered humanitarian access. The Ethiopian government has strongly expressed its full commitment to undertake an in-depth investigation to get to the bottom of the allegation and bring those responsible for any crime to justice. It has also called for a constructive engagement for the international community to support its investigation. The government welcomes the recent understanding between the National Human Rights Commission and the United Nations Human Rights Chief to conduct joint investigations. But it appears some actors are still adopting double standards in their public opinions on the situation in Ethiopia. By contrast, the African Union has been quite responsive. The EU Commission headed Prime Minister Abiy's call to undertake an investigation jointly with the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission. This instance shows that our future undeniably lies in the African solutions to African problems maxim. Therefore, if multilateralism is alive, the international community should provide significant support to Ethiopia, whose commitment to this principle has not wavered. International actors that consider democracy, peace and security and development as crucial tools of the global order should in principle be ready for constructive engagement and providing much needed assistance to Ethiopia. Yet we would be remiss not to commend the most principled positions of some of our trusted partners during this critical time. Samia concludes the article.
Panelists of the Addis Dialogue expressed fear that widespread misinformation may hamper the peaceful conduct of the 6th general election Ethiopia is set to hold. Making a well-informed society is an integral part of a successful conduct of an election, they indicated. Kazahon Chani presents the story.
In its second day deliberation, Addis Dialogue discusses the role of the media and the impact of disinformation during the much anticipated 6 upcoming general elections Ethiopia is set to hold in June. The panelists expressed fear that widespread misinformation surfacing the social and mainstream media in the country would influence the choices of voters during the election. Speaking on the discussion, Solomon Gosho, a lawyer on media-related issues, said the political transition may face uncertainties if voters are misled by false information.
If we do not have well-informed voters, the election process may face uncertainties. The decisions that voters made based on misinformation may reverse the positive result of the election. This deliberately propagated misleading information may hurt the process. These mainly identity-based misinformation are being cooked in a very sophisticated manner to push voters astray.
Voters
are the right to access accurate information to make their decisions as for whom to give their votes. One way to prevent false information is to look for evidence and verify the source of the information.
Considering the impact of misinformation, all stakes, including the government, political parties and activists, should act responsibly for the peaceful conduct of the election.
ዳንግላ የሚለው ስያሜ የተሰጠ በመጀመሪያ ዋግምራ ወይም ሰቆጣ ከሚባል አካባቢ ላይ 7 ወንድማማች አገዎች እንደመጡና ወንድማማቾች ወደዚህ አካባቢ ይመጣሉ። ሲያዩት ለምለም ቦታ ሆኖ ያገኙታል። ሲፈልጉ እና በቋንቋቸው ሲነጋገሩ ዳንግ ራሱ ዳንግ ነው ስሙ። የት ሄደ እላ ማለት ባገውኛ የለም ማለት ነው። እዚህ አካባቢ የለም እና ዳንግላ የሚለው ስያሜ ከዚህ አንጻር የመጣ ነው።
የከተማዋ ጉዳይ ከበፊቱ አሁን የተሻሻለ ነገር ነው ያለው።
You're watching Addis News Hour. Coffee plantations occupy a total of 110,000 hectares across Kenya. The African country is the fifth largest producer of Arabica coffee on the continent after Ethiopia, Uganda, Ivory Coast, and Tanzania. But Kenyan farmers say they have been severely impacted by climate change. This has led to unpredictable rainfall patterns, drought, and rising temperatures, making crop management and disease control difficult. Goshu Maliso has more from France 24.
Kenya is fifth largest producer of Arabica coffee. Plantations here cover 110,000 hectares of land. But according to the country's Coffee Research Institute, climate change is having a deep impact on the sector.
In Kenya, we produce Arabica coffee, which prefers cool and wet conditions. Because of increase of temperature caused by climate change and depressed rains, then we have poorer quality of the yields and poorer amounts of the yields.
Erratic rainfall has complicated the lives of farmers.
Now with the climate change, we have unpredictable rainy patterns, whereby in terms of crop production, we are not able to predict when to apply the fertilizers or farming inputs in general, and that one, it affects coffee production.
The irregular rainfall means there are showers during dry period, so some bushes flower too early.
Sasa kwa hii sasa mumea unapata hii iko tayari kuvunwa, hii red ones na hii green ones bado sasa inachukua mara ingine tena kuvunwa hii yenye haiva kwa shamba mzuri.
This means labor has to be hard for extended periods and farmers' incomes are decreased. The latest figure showed coffee production was expected to decline to 40,000 tons in 2020, down from 47,000 tons 4 years ago.
And finally, the Ever Given, a huge container ship that has been stuck across Suez Canal for almost a week, has reportedly been straightened and released. Video appeared to show the ship floating, but its owner later told AFP that it had only been, quote, turned. The Ever Given has been blocking one of the world's busiest trade routes, the Suez Canal, forcing companies to reroute ships. An estimated 9.6 billion worth of goods is being held up each day at the Suez Canal. Maritime services company Inchcape earlier said that the vessel had been freed from the shoreline. The reports that the ship has been freed raised hopes that traffic along the canal could resume. About 12% of global trade passes through the 193-kilometer-long Suez Canal, which connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea and provides the shortest link between Asia and Europe. You're watching Addis News Hour. A quick reminder of the day's headlines. Ethiopia says El-Sisi's threatening comments won't help the GERD negotiation. And an Ethiopian envoy to Qatar lashes out at the UN for failing to understand Ethiopia. And that's all we had for now. I'm Tabitha Germany. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.